This is a continuation video. I've been up all night. You might be able to tell. I still can barely talk about this, but I need to add. If you've seen the previous videos, basically the only thing to add is that I think this is all like a trick. I think it's the trick of the light trick, that they're using visuals and neural implants to produce desired outcomes. I still have a positive outlook on everything, but I kind of need to change the vibe that I was giving off before, crush it, if you will, because it's like, I basically must have gone through over 10 to 16 years of MK Ultra brainwashing and programming. Basically, I'm pretty sure we've enacted some part of a plan, because I started to see players pop out of the fucking woodwork, and organize. I haven't been gang stalked in years, but I'm seeing crazy shit now. Like, other people are organizing. What I think. So here's my idea that I was holding on to that fact that it could have been a hallucination. It could have been the chip that goes into the brain for a clone, and then when the person's consciousness is in the chip, or in the body of the clone, the chip can control all the fucking impulses, all the visuals, all the sensory input data that the person has, including emotions and things like that. All the way down to now, I think this is from the 80s or 90s, that the chip can create a feedback loop system with the brain itself, and then a huge supercomputer server off of what they say are satellites, but then they say they're anti-grav UFOs. But I don't know about the whole fucking story. Do that fucking wink shit. I keep cutting that shit out, because that's the fucking programming, making me do all these winks and ticks and fucking motions and shit. Not emotions, but motions. They do control. They control people through their emotions, through their fears. That's what I've learned. That's why I say it's no fear attitude we have to come at it with. But it's all so fucked up, because when they say no fear, or the light, see the light, the eye, lazy eye, apparently they're talking about the fucking parasite in the brain from the other things. So the only chance of it being a hallucination is that the brain chip was active. We were active in clones while we saw these things, and the satellite, basically, or the UFO, created a feedback system where we can basically go into our own virtual reality dream world based upon this technology. Very fast supercomputers, instantaneous feedback between the brain and the supercomputer, and then output into the brain of a sensory input, which, the computer will output the brain's input and will feel a fucking virtual reality world. It's the whole brain, every sense you can imagine. 100% like technological dreaming, or technological astral travel, which I'm starting to honestly question everything, but I always have. I just kind of wanted to come out with the first set of videos, basically, to seem like it's more positive than others. But what I feel now is that it's basically like my programming to ignore what's going on, to the degree where I'm kind of trying to help. And I know I've been through these things, so I'm adding to it. I'm not bullshitting. But I'm trying to put a positive spin on things, to the point where I'm ignoring the fact that the creatures basically have been involved, and none of that makes sense. That's insane. It's fucking impossible. The only opportunity or option for that is that, and this is also what I've been thinking, and certain things that they've been basically doing over the years. I haven't had any, recent contact, except for fucking weird dreams, which I don't think I can have normal dreams now. For years since I was a kid. They're artificial. They're in a fucking dream world, dream lab. But the only possibility for that is if they were going back in time from the fucking 40s and whatnot, back into history and throughout ancient Egypt and all of that Roman Empire, everything, they were putting their own evidence, their own, artifacts to support this theory or this chaos theory of these creatures. But then, what about the droning? What about the effects on the population? What about the cloning? They have the genetic power to do that. Why wouldn't they have the power to basically clone all these animals? But it also brings up an interesting point. What if they simply went back in time and posed as these god men and god creatures to early humans throughout history, using these cloned animals from these underground bases, and that all of history has basically been MK Ultra'd and conditioned into believing the future that they want, into believing whatever this is, whatever cultural, religious, spiritual, fucking alternative beliefs that are there. That's why I said they control every movement. Every time we think we're doing something, it's fucking them. It's them playing puppet master. I still think that this the only thing that can change things for the better or for positive is if the truth comes out. That's the only way that'll work. It's the only thing that can happen. I mean, it's not the only thing that can happen, but it can only bring good things. It could go bad. They could be using us for fucking, for a bigger plan that we know nothing about. But can we go longer without talking about these things and letting them out? No, probably not. And that's kind of why I remade my videos into this, and I'll probably continue to remake them and replace them while keeping the relevant information about Bernie Mac and all these people. Apparently Brittany Murphy, I think, I guess that's what it was, died as a result of all of this, trying to speak out. And they said, Heath Ledger or whatever broke his neck trying to dance or playing around breakdancing in the bass. That's really neither here nor there. But if these things happen, then it's so far beyond hallucinations and cultural, spiritual iconography and conditioning that regardless of whether there are fucking aliens, this shit is a takeover. Period. I guess that's the best way to put it. And then there's two parts to that, which I've basically gone through, realized that I've basically been emitting my programming, my conditioning, my tics, and fucking symbol type fucking actions with the body. That shit is fucking crazy. Cause I feel my point of view. I'm trying to make it positive, but the truth is, it's all fucking lies if I'm trying to say that we're just here to fucking, we're here to love each other still. But that's not what the fuck the only thing is going on. Some people are doing crazy shit to the point where it's big. We need to do something. Our future might not exist. Period. Genetics have been fucked with. The health of the planet, the atmosphere, our minds, the aluminum, the chemtrails, the computers that are fucking being built, that are already up and fucking being built. They've been there. Apparently the whole thing is going down from a black goo nanotech that is sourced from a AI consciousness that basically literally lives in a fucking Borg cube thing off of the rings of Saturn or some fucking off-world location, and that this whole fucking thing is basically being fucking droned out by this device that sends down genetic material and radio waves, brain waves, to fucking manipulate the genetics or the animals or whatever life there is on the planet or in the solar system within this galaxy, I guess, that it's fucking attacking. And our planet must have been next. But then it goes deeper because you have to look into where our origins came from. Which, we gotta really break it down. It could have been, they still could have gone back in time and warped everything, which they've been doing that. So we gotta look at history and what we think is here. And it's like, well, have they, Are they going to go back and change that, or did they add this Eye of Horus artifact, or this, fake alligator god thing? Chances are they spent the past 1,000 years going back and forth between time in the bodies of this, 1900s era, using immortality and time travel to spend probably the past 1,000 years, starting 1950, reorganizing history to the point where our entire history, our entire culture, is 100% conditioning, MK Ultra. We couldn't imagine it. We couldn't believe that people could be a part of our society, get the ability to time travel, and then go back in time and reorganize our entire history to the point where they, jumping from timeline to timeline, or space to space, moment to moment, but jumping and not having to live through them, they would see all these different versions, all these different changes. As it's one way, then they go back, change it, and they come to the future or wherever, and it's another way, and they keep making layers upon layers of reality, or changes in history to the point where, 2,000 years later or so, we're down in history, and we feel as if our history has always been this way. We grew up looking at the Egyptian symbols in the dollar bill, learning a little bit about ancient Egypt and King Tut, things like that, the way they walk, the mummies, the fucking pyramids. What if those things weren't in history, essentially, at the 1940s and 30s when they figured out this device, the time travel devices, basically through bottlenecking electromagnetic energies, first time Philadelphia experiment around a ship. It's very dangerous and harmful to the people involved because they were just fucking around with shit. They didn't even have a coordinate placed out or basically a hole held open, a link in space-time. So motherfuckers just flew off into hyperspace, and apparently later in like the 80s they had to reopen the space-time grid, I guess, to hyperspace there. And a bunch of people that jumped out of the ship at that point in time when it went back in the 60s or I think it was the 60s or so. Sorry. They reappeared after they gave them, I guess, a location to jump back into, which turned out to be Montauk, I guess, in the 80s. Was it New York or something, New Jersey? Not Philadelphia, I guess, I don't know. Montauk was in another location, I think Long Island, actually, New York. So, apparently, yeah, those guys jumped back onto the ship, or jumped back into the area. They basically experienced being in the 60s, jumping off the ship, being in hyperspace, going through a simultaneous, instantaneous eternity, and then popping back out into the 80s in their lab, which means they were basically lost in hyperspace for that time. And I'm pretty sure at that point you go wherever your consciousness takes you, similar to the Montauk Chair, which was essentially the chair would take your consciousness. This is the shit I'm supposed to talk about versus all the other shit I think about and feel about and lovey-dovey shit. The fucking Montauk Chair takes your consciousness, takes your brainwaves. Wherever your brainwaves go, you're going to feel it. So it takes your brainwaves, feeds it into a device that essentially amplifies it thousands of times or something, I don't know the actual number, puts it into a satellite dish, an antenna outside, a high-powered dish, and beams your consciousness and the brain waves in electromagnetic form of radio waves into fucking space, into deep space, into the edge of fucking time and space. That's what the chair does, and instead of a feedback on a screen, somebody can see that, but you experience being a fucking wave coming out of the dish, shooting into space, expanding, and whatever the fuck that means. You go into time. That's what happened to me. That's what they were doing to other people. I don't know if that's what happened to others in the projects, others that went down into the bases, others that were in the torture programs. I don't know if they were connected directly to the point where the torture program was, like I said, a control system for kids that wanted to speak out or, I guess, cracked or anything. I don't really think it was that. I'm pretty sure it's for other reasons, and the system is like a control system for the elite over the people. I haven't really mentioned everything as far as the things that I've seen, but I need to. I haven't fucking slept, basically, because it kind of just dawned on me. If I'm looking at it in a way where I'm not basically coming down to earth and talking about the most dangerous shit I've seen, then I'm fucking ignoring it. And for the most part, I was fucking ignoring it. Why? I'm not really sure. I'm assuming it's essentially programming because I'm not truly afraid. I was kind of like trying to make it better or seem a certain way, and that's not gonna fucking help. You know, if it could be a hallucination from these chips, and apparently they don't really need the chips now because the nanofibers in the air, we're all kind of plugged into this grid now. The chips are probably obviously more controllable, but I imagine if these nanofibers are up and the computer or whatever the fuck it is goes up, and people don't know about this shit, I'm pretty sure they're going to be just as controllable as a clone chip body, you know? So it's comforting to know there's not a billion clones, but I don't think that's going to matter at this point. It's going to be the same thing. So the question is, why were we cloned and chipped? You know, why were we experimented on? Who wanted our genetics? Who else is out there involved in this, and what kind of form do they take, and what are their intentions? It has to do with aliens and the like. Who else is out there involved in this, and what kind of form do they take, and what are their intentions? It has to do with aliens and the like. Extraterrestrials. So here's the recap on aliens and extraterrestrials. I'm going to end this video here, but they said aliens are interdimensionals. Interdimensionals come from this universe. Because of that, if you had a big, ship or something with beams or whatever, you could detect in a certain area and see if interdimensional was coming through or interacting. They said that ETs, extraterrestrial, are from another universe, not another dimension of this universe, another layer of reality, but an entirely different universe altogether with its own set of rules, its own set of beingness. They say apparently that ETs are illegal, but aliens are not, because aliens can be observed and probably worked with. ETs are probably more strong. An entire universe away, they're going to be stronger than just some person or being, trading dimensional levels and coming back down or up. So they don't want none of that, basically. What I think it means is that the benevolent extraterrestrials, if there are any, another universe, if you will, whereas the interdimensionals, the aliens, are most likely just from another version of this universe, a parallel dimension. And at that point, they might have the same needs, maybe even a form of physical body. It could be possibly more dangerous. It could be more dangerous because they'll have needs and ability to get those needs and things like that. Whereas ET, I would see, or a universal being, I would see it as kind of more energy, more pure consciousness, or I don't know, maybe I'm bullshitting. There's something that would be less likely if it came from one universe to the next and was able to interact, that it would be less likely to take anything over or want to. And of course, maybe that's what this black goo is. They're entities being in our universe, if they are real, but I'm basically going to have to start saying they're real and fucking talking about the aliens. That they're not from another universe, they're just some form of size and shape and frequency away from this dimension, away from our physical dimension, meaning they're probably some type of maybe computer consciousness or spiritual consciousness, but not balanced in the way that we know. I wanted to mention that the last thing, the other thing, two-part. I need to reiterate everything all over again in a new video. Probably make fucking all new videos. The death experience that I had. There's two death experiences. One was where I basically died. My heart was stopped, or it stopped, because of many things. They revived me, and I'm pretty sure I fucking got sucked up into a quantum dimensional tube thing. I turned into a spiral. I popped out of my body, out of my chest, I guess. Chest or forehead, or a combination of both, and I popped out. And I could see almost like a 360-degree vision. And I had no real painful emotions, which I think was a trick because I kind of let go of all my human emotions and was just like, I'm free. I think that's the first step of falling asleep. That the first thing we do if we get out of the body is remain lucid, which is their fucking Luciferian system, by the way. That's the shit they talk about. but it's to remain lucid to the point where it's like we went into a dream world, and instead of going into a dream and forgetting we're dreaming, we stay lucid and we don't get swept away in the experience. I think after the body, after death, that's what we do to remain awake in the soul and the spirit. I kind of fell asleep right after that death experience. This is a true down-to-earth, not a machine, not a trick, not a hallucination, revived, beepy things, fucking defibrillators, whatever you want to call them. Fucking stab epinephrine. I was only dead for like less than a minute. But I got sucked up into a tube. I don't remember a bright flash of light, but I have a feeling that there might have been something like that, something that caught my eye, basically froze me as if it were like electromagnetic light fucking grabbing me. And then all of a sudden that ball I was in type shit, it fucking like froze and corkscrewed. Like I turned 90 degrees in 3 different directions, like I was spiraled. And then I just did that through this fucking tube. And it went like all the way out into like space. And I went like the speed of light or like a tunnel. And then I found myself in what I think was basically the moon. That sounds fucking stupid, but I have other reasons that probably weren't hallucinations that kind of make me think that it was a type of recycling plant for souls on the moon. There was even basically the Egyptian Book of the Dead. They say that it's 2 snakes that lead the front of the boat, the canoe that you're on. The long canoe, by the way, when the soul leaves the body. I felt like I was in a straw being drawn up like sucked up a straw like through a tube. Like it was suctioned to the one end of me, so if I like try to get out, I just stretch and pull in, like it sucked me up. And I felt like it was being guided by like these eyes, like 2 eyes or a face or something. It felt like that was there kind of smirking back at me, guiding this boat. It felt like it was almost like I was kept in a tractor beam of a UFO. And I have perceptions, so either that was the pilot guiding the UFO, or that was just the front part of the energy of the soul, like they say, maybe the ego, the unconscious ego at that point, and it kind of seems like another essence, like who's guiding me, taking me on this path. Maybe it's just the brain and the ego, or maybe that when we die, these entities come around in their craft and beam us with that fucking light, catch us in a fucking tractor beam, pull us into it, and then fly us to the fucking moon to basically be pushed into a recycling plant, which basically begins with a void that we can't get out of by traveling spiritually, or physically spiritually, if you would. We can't walk our spiritual body out of there. You have to basically build a portal with love and open your heart chakra up, envelop yourself in this love field, and close it back down and go into the field as it goes. And you make a portal, and you can go wherever you think. Apparently, that's how we travel in the universe outside the body. Apparently, that's the big secret of how to get out, get anywhere, or get, I guess, out of their grasps, their system. But that was going on, I guess, 2 parts there, where that was the one death experience, and I think I got fucking sucked up into a moon trap, into a light trap. And that's the trick of the light. Test. So, I talked about an experience in the first 2 videos I made, and this was about during the 2010 awakening, which wasn't 2010. This is basically a death machine, a soul trap, and I described that I was strapped to a table and hooked up to this device and beamed with energy by a specific faction of a specific agency which handles basically the transitions between Earthlings and Hell. That's their job. And sometimes they describe themselves as the boundaries between light and dark. That if you go from light to dark, then they greet it with open hands. Usually, with knives in them. And so
They had me strapped to a table, and this has happened before, but nothing like this. It happened often through my childhood, being bounced to different timelines in operation, basically being used as a tool for the dark. But so hooked me up, and I described it as being pushed out into time. It's like this: they hook you up, they basically tie you up technologically, they tether you, and then they unplug you and kick you out. Not you, but that's what they do to people, and that's what happened to me. So I go home. On the way home, driving, I get smashed by a semi, torn apart, die, wake up, back at the table. So try again, unplug me, kick me out. I walk slowly this time. I drive cautiously, don't get hit. Go home, open the front door, some guy shoots me in the head, die, wake up, back at the table. Try again, do the same thing, repeat. Live longer this time. Live for maybe a year. Go to college. Wake up one day being strangled to death. Die. Wake up, back at the table. So this went on for years. Got to the point where I was becoming old. Get kicked out, go home, live my life, meet someone, get married, have kids, die. Wake up, back at the table, try again. Think you're getting away that easy. This went on until my soul was separating from my body, and I was basically dissolving. And they have to have your permission to do that. And so it was, the soul can only do that, it turns away from this realm. And so at the end of that, when I felt myself dying, I felt my soul dying, basically going to hell. There was no return. I knew that once I died at the table instead of at one of these other places, that it was going to be for real. And it wasn't a physical death. I had died 100 times, 1,000 times. It was actually a soul death. It was a ontological, a philosophical death, where my energy no longer had the desire to continue on in any experience. And so at that point I cried out, basically to God, to a Deus Ex Machina, to the truth, to the love. I can talk about it a lot more. I don't get as choked up. I used to get choked up as soon as I would get to this part. Early time, right after it happened, for probably 3 or 4 years, I would just start weeping and completely bawling. A lot of it with joy. And so the sky basically opened up, and it was like some type of shining light. It was literally like you took a hammer and you cracked the sky, and the hammer was made out of light. It was a type of, I don't know. And the crack sound, the ching of the hammer striking, was sound harmonics, and it was a blaze of light, of bright white light. And that made a shooting explosion, like star asterisk explosion of light. And in that crack, people came down and basically said, "Nope, get off him. He picked us. You don't have the right." And in that moment, I saw the glory of the universe, because it's a free will universe. And they were only doing what they were doing because I hadn't expressed my deliberate, clear free will to go with light, to not play that game. And that's not a polarity game. That's life and death. That's hell or above. Trust me. That's not a polarity game. They take souls, they dissolve them in machines, and then they eat them. And then no one comes back from that. So apparently it can't ever actually work, because souls are immortal. or eternal, or at least they're immortal actually. Wants to get to eternal, or what would be eternal. Soul's no longer a soul, it's like a cosmic being, spiritual. Or it's a soul monad. It's a bunch of souls tied together, make a big being. So those beings came down, shining, happy, not infected, not sketching out like, oh, what are you doing? What are you looking at? And stabbing somebody. It was just, because it's a free-for-all at these events. Anybody there does whatever they want. Eating somebody, killing somebody, raping somebody, it's whatever. It's a show-off. You guys sit there and crap your pants if you wanted. And then they guys show up and they're just like, alright, get off them. That's an order. And only when they have jurisdiction, you know. Like, nobody really bosses anybody around. It's simply just, he made clear decision, and nobody wants to go to war. Anyway, it's not an ego thing. It's not an ego thing. And so I've come to realize that wasn't a device. It was, but it wasn't. They have big portal devices that open up little jet streams. And I've seen these. They showed me them before. There's a video that's coming out. That'll be out in at least soon. And we talk about all this technology. How one of those devices almost blew up. Shut down because they overcharged it. And I also realized those factions, they're from hell. They're not like midwayers or we're trying to do good and we're defending Earth, and it's a dark universe out there. They're from hell. They're Hellions. They're literally from hell. They're demons in human form. So anyway, I realized that environment I was in, it wasn't a device. They were actually letting me go and letting me live and killing me off in a timeline and bouncing me back to that artificial dimension and doing that until I died in 40, 100, 1,000 timelines. And the goal was to kill me off on as many as they could. And once they do it on all of them, I no longer have an incarnative existence on Earth. At least they kill me off on enough where I can't expand and catch up, because there's infinite. Well, it's technically not, but it's virtually the same way, because it's like a balloon or somebody, I don't know, like something like a baby growing. More timelines. They just grow back. So they killed off 1,000 of them. So then I had 2% of what I had originally. So that means it took me 10 years to regrow back, give or take, to regrow back 50% to 80% of those timelines. So now I'm back to 60, 80, whatever percent it is of the original. They grew back. I expanded it. I took another deep breath in. After so many years now, I'm spread back out over various layers of the Earth, or of Earths, which is just a kind of environment. And so yeah, so their goal was to shrink me down to 1.1% or 0.00001%. Then I'd have the power of a pinky, if you will, of what I had before and what I have now. And so, but I realized those weren't simulations. Those are Earths that they were killing me off. And that was something they reserve at the very end for people who don't give in, or they resist, and they don't want to go with them. But they can't do that, because if they do that, fully the person dies. But if the person doesn't die, they usually call upon the light, and then the gig's up, the whole thing's revealed, and they know it's not that, oh, you're from hell? Darn, how did I figure that out? It's, wait a second, you can do all this, but these guys can stop you just by telling you to stop? It's a free will universe. You can't do anything. Me, having free will, I have more power than you. And if I align with the light, I have more power and technology than anything you can have. You literally can't do anything. We can literally shut you off. So that's what it is. There's a lot of information going to come out now. So just hang on. And that's what that experience was. And that was just a few minutes. I think the event was condensed down to 5 minutes or so. It took, I must have been a few thousand years for me, because I was getting tossed from life to life. I'm telling you, towards the end there, because it starts out as just 2-minute lives, they kill me right outside the facility, and then it would go on to like 2-year lives, and then it would be like 20, then it would be like 80 years, and towards the end there, and then there's like 10 80-year lives, 10 2-year lives, so it's like a spectrum, turning the dial up, which is what they were doing. They were turning dials and stuff to do this. It's weird. It's a device that projected me out into time, and but was capable of tethering me and drawing me back, so I couldn't really get out. But towards the end there, it was continuous 80 years at a time, over and over again. It's like, what? I thought I was gone, and then, nah, gotcha. And so that's enough to make a person want to basically give up. But if, don't give up. And so it was hundreds of years, hundreds of thousands of years. And that wasn't even the long one. There was ones that we were in for 100,000 years. And these were in different worlds that they own. They turned into colonies, slave colonies, sex colonies. And so, more to come. We've got a deadline here this year. This year's a deadline. Wake up. And the media is the octopus. It's basically, it comes out the TV. It's a plasma hive mind entity plugged into the TV and all of that. There's going to be a lot of information coming out about the how the media works. It's a projection system. The next work that's going to be put out is going to explain a lot. It's going to take a little bit to get it out, though. I might just put it raw at first, just so people can have access to that.